guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And welcome back to this week's No Limits, a Mitch Rap podcast. What's up this week, Mike?
Dude, nothing new. How about for you?
I don't know.
Except we got Enemy at the Gates.
Oh, yes, that is true. That is true.
We're trying to play it off being all bored and whatnot, but this was a huge week.
It was a very huge week. I was excited that we're currently using the Scribed app, and it day one, I was like, well, let me just go see if they have it. They're not going to have it. Figuring it's like Redbox, it takes some like time, Boom, right there. I finished my Right of the Survivor, finished these notes, went right into Enemy at the Gates. It was awesome.
Dude, same here. I was not expecting the audiobook to be ready on day one of the release date on Scribed. Great freaking app. Yeah, so I reread it 3 times now, twice with the ARC, and I was expecting to have to wait for my signed hard copy to read it again, and then there it was as an audiobook. So I got to hear some George Goodell on release day, and yeah, I didn't even wait to finish Survivor. I'm going to be a little confused this podcast because I was reading both at the same time.
That's funny. Yeah, no, it was a great week. I saw Kyle was posting all these pictures of with the Enemy of the Gates cover, which is an awesome cover, by the way.
Great.
Posted on various parts of Spain. I think there was one in like London. I don't know. It was all over the place.
The Photoshops.
The Photoshops.
Yeah,
those were pretty
I did
funny.
See those. Like on the, not the Alhambra.
Yeah, it was the Alhambra. It was the Alhambra.
Yeah. I think someone actually thought it was a real advertisement. And they were like, no way, you're famous in Spain.
It's like he got someone at Alhambra to perfectly put up these lights that would put up the drapes. I don't know. Like, that's ridiculous. But yeah.
Hey, David Brown's got connections, man.
True.
The bus gets around. The bus goes international.
It's true.
Give us a couple of weeks and we'll be spoiling it. So we'll be here to give you our breakdown. And should we tell the people who we hope to have on to also spoil this book?
Maybe. Yeah, so we're talking with Kyle this weekend.
Yes.
That's exciting.
I even asked him, I said, hey, we know you're doing the book tour and it's been awesome. And shout out to Brian.
Oh, yes.
Did you hear Brian filled in?
I did.
Yeah, last minute power outage for Ryan Steck, and they got Brian Costello, fellow podcaster and Mitch Rap ambassador, to fill in. Did a great job, but I asked Kyle, I said, hey, you've been talking a lot about and dancing around, the fact of the big decisions you made in the book. Can we just straight up ask you why you made these choices that you did in Enemy at the Gates, and can we have a spoiler episode with you? And he was like, let's do it.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about anything. So we're going to have him on and we're going to pick his brain about the details and the nitty gritty that went into Enemy at the Gates.
Super looking forward to that. So
yeah, pumped awesome for that.
That is awesome.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't jump ahead because we've got an awesome book to wrap up right now. Chris, tell us what we're covering this episode.
All right, so last week we started The Survivor, Kyle's first book, and today we're going to be wrapping that up. And I'll just have to say, Mike, this was a great book.
This is a great book.
And when I was trying to think about the theme, and we talked a little bit last week about this whole transition period, to me, what really stands out, and you even brought it up, anyways, before we hit record, the little nuggets, right, and one-liners and everything that Kyle has put into this just shows what I think what I think the overarching theme here is. Not so much, yeah, it's a great story and he had to nail that, but also he wanted to did the research and wanted to show he cares about this story.
Right. And
he wanted to, to people who have stuck from the very beginning, give you these little tidbits and to show that he knows the backstory and he's going to take it forward. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just reading way too much into this, but
no.
You could have anyone could come in and they could have, all right, they read the books. I know what this character is. I'm going to write a story about it. But then to bring up these random nuggets about a girlfriend who, or like, I want to meet a girl who doesn't shove an ice pick in my ear.
And her weapon of choice.
Like, that's a completely throwaway line.
Right.
But,
he didn't tell his own story. He told Vince's story.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Right? And so many people might not have done that and maybe didn't have to do that.
Or would have been like...
But he did it.
Vince-esque. Like Mitch,
right.
Mitch-esque. Like Mitch Light, essentially.
Right.
This is a Vince Flynn story written by Kyle Mills.
Absolutely.
To a T. I can't, and then I think like this allows him, gives him the credibility to then go on, and I think we're going to touch on this in the next couple books, to begin to do his own thing.
Right. Right. He's earning that. He's earning our attention, and we as the readers, thankfully, definitely in Order to Kill, but even beyond into Red War, Kyle basically earned our trust.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's got his real own stamp and voice coming through, particularly in Lethal Agent through Total Power and Enemy at the Gates, that he's earned.
Sure.
4 or 5 books that were just straight up Vince Flynn style, very Flynnian. He's kind of earned the right to take the story his own way. And I think he does that in Enemy, but we'll that's for another week.
And I'll argue that if people thought when this came out they were disappointed, they shouldn't have been.
The Survivor? Yeah, no way.
They should not have been. Like,
absolutely not.
If you actually sit down and look at it, it's a very Vince Flynn book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you said, those nuggets. I mean, this is the 20-piece McNugget meal. This is the value meal right here. We're getting so much. It's jam-packed. And I was going to propose, Chris, I definitely want to cover the plot and the progression of the story for sure. But I think I'm just even more excited just to kind of list out these amazing drops that Kyle gives us. I mean, and it picks up right where we left off with a dead Stan Hurley.
Right.
But even with Stan's body in this house in Switzerland, the boys got to get out. They've got to get to safety. They're still battling a couple of tangos. And holy shit. Rapp gets a Gatling gun.
That was a pretty sick with the iPad, and he's got
with the iPad, he spins the Gatling gun around to take out these dudes.
That's like some Call of Duty type shit.
Right. And then he pushes a chest down the stairs to crash into this guy or something. And then there's no way he's leaving without Stan. And the guys have a 4 or 5 mile hike through the woods to their extraction point. And he carries Stan and doesn't let anybody else carry him. It's Mitch's duty to get Stan out of that battle and to safety. He's going to bring Stan home. He doesn't even let anybody else give him a break.
And so I also couldn't help thinking of tying in, speaking of tying in previous novels, what was the main theme of Transfer of Power? With not the main theme, but one of the themes with Mitch. He keeps on saying, I got to get out. I
want to get out.
I want to get out. And my time is up. That was what? How many books in are we? And
right. That was the first Mitch Rapp book.
And now we're here, and he's thinking, I don't want that to be me.
Right.
Is that what, is someone younger than me going to be carrying me over their shoulder when I'm 70 and an op goes bad or something happens? Yeah, I just tying that in with this, sort of duality between Stan and him, and how he doesn't want that to be a duality,
Yep. And then, yes, you marry that talk right off the bat with Transfer of Power Mitch, but then you tie that together with the American Assassin Killshot Mitch and the complexity of his relationship with Stan, and it's all kind of coming to a head. Like you said, The Last Man into The Survivor is a total new chapter beginning for Mitch, almost a midlife crisis Mitch, which is going to give some license and leverage for his character to to breathe, and we see Kyle, allowing Mitch to breathe. He makes him more funny and humorous, a little less dark and brooding, or maybe humorous through his darkness and his brooding.
Yeah.
He finds humor in things through it, and then at the same time becoming a family man. And we're going to have to talk about Claudia and Anna because Mitch does have an encounter with them later in the book. But I have a quote about exactly what you said. Rapp worrying about his future and if he'll end up like a Stan. And I think Kyle nails this. He writes, Rapp's love-hate relationship with the old man had started out more hate-hate. He could still remember saying that he'd rather put a gun in his mouth if he ever found himself turning into Stan Hurley. Yet here he was, living alone in a crap apartment near D.C., smoking and drinking too much in an effort to mask the rage lurking below the surface. The old man was dead. Anna was dead. Gould was dead. His past felt like it had suddenly been stripped away. The question was, what was he going to do about it? Would he allow himself to become even more disconnected, to lose even more of who he was? Or would he hit the reset button? At 44, there could be a lot of years left.
This is one of the very few times we get the actual age. Like, not
Right.
40s, late 40s, pushing 50.
Right.
It's
like a midlife crisis
he is
here.
44 here. So that puts Scott. So if Scott's almost 50, like 48, Scott's like 4 or 5 years older than him.
Yeah, I think that's about where I think I would have pegged it. He likes ribbing with Scott, calling him the old man and whatnot.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is, I think, I feel for Rapp thinking about this because, what else could he do? Especially after he lost Anna. The only person he really has in his life is Irene now. He lost Thomas. He lost, now he's lost Hurley.
Right.
Every single fling that he's had, we haven't really had any sort of connection. Like, Claudia will become besides Anna, I guess, the only other. Yeah. And I much prefer the Claudia Mitch relationship than the Anna Mitch relationship. She's way less of a whiny bitch, like, I don't know. Like, well, Kyle writes females better. Kyle writes females way better, I think.
Yes, the only counter to that is Vince created Irene.
True.
So overall, yes.
Yeah, but that's
Kyle
the problem,
writes,
right? Is that Irene is a female, right. And she's an amazing character.
Like, Irene wins any day when you talk female characters in this universe, and Vince created her. But Kyle writes Mitch's girlfriends and relationships with women way better, for sure. Like, hands down. That's a Kyleism.
That
right
is
there.
a Kyleism, yes.
Speaking of Kyleism, I have another Kyleism which does kind of tie into Claudia.
Okay.
So, remember we were doing The Last Man, and I was kind of shocked, and I think you were too, that we never saw Mick Reavers and Joe Maslick operate together until that final battle where Reavers dies. Mm-hmm. And it made me think, we don't really see these operations as a team and as a crew with this outside logistics person running the show. And Kyle, right here in his first action scene, or one of his first major action scenes, is writing the entire crew, from Wick to Maz to this Bruno McGraw that he's created, to Rapp, to Hurley, to Gould, all together in an op. And a logistics lady, did you hear this? Maria Glauser?
Yeah, she's pretty good.
Yeah. And Rapp says a bunch of times, like, yo, I'm going to have to use her because she sends them the FedEx van for the exfil, and they take Stan's body in a duffel bag.
And
like
they each have these like bags that are like labeled with their names, and they, one has like a suit for Mitch, like has running clothes for Wickers, and he's going to go run another 10 miles, like
15 miles, yeah.
Like,
and it was like in some river.
Yeah,
it was like these bags were floating in a river, and they picked them up. So let me ask you, I think the first Kyleism, he likes these group scenes.
Yeah, he writes these group scenes pretty well.
Really well, the whole group working together with a logistics person giving them intel. Do you think Maria Glauser was his first draft of what Claudia would become? And he realized, you don't need this Maria lady because Claudia ran that for Gould? And like at the same time, like, do you think the seeds were planted here for the role he's going to give to Claudia moving forward.
Maybe. I think you just go back and read Consent to Kill and look at her, what she did, and besides being Gould's girlfriend and baby mama, she was the operations, the logistics person. So I think building on that, and then also seeing oh, there's this hole, and it's definitely something that he likes to write. Vince used to like to write these huge battles. I just think back to all the helicopter scenes and the action scenes that Kyle writes those things differently.
Very differently.
But we'll even go into what is it, Enemy of the State, where Mitch has to make his own team, this ragtag team of ex-assassins down in Africa. Kyle likes, and think about Lethal Agent, and when he brings all those people in, when they're going through Mexico,
the chase scene,
yeah, and I guess a little bit of the same in Total Power with the teams that are going through the city in the blackout, trying to get people. Yeah, it's interesting now that we're finally comparing these two authors throughout the series. You can definitely pick out what they prefer to write about or what they excel at writing.
Because when Vince would write a scene like that, it wasn't necessarily Rapp's team doing those things with him. It might have been a random military unit he was attached with. Or it was Scott Coleman in Term Limits doing the scene with the choppers as kind of a lone wolf, setting these, radio interference signals and the fireworks at the bridge to throw off the choppers. Is Rapp becoming less of the lone wolf kind of guy and instead more likely to embed himself with Scott and his men when they're on ops? Especially with Stan gone and eventually having Claudia on Overwatch and having this Maria lady here now, Rapp's doing a bit more as a team player, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity just to, while calling back, this novel allowed him to call back all of these previous characters, like Stan. They touch on Tom, they mention Stanfield, sort of acknowledging the past. Then he goes the next, right after they get out, he goes to Greece, and we see Claudia and Anna again, and it's now reintroducing them in our mind to oh shit, we haven't seen these characters since Consent to Kill.
Consent to Kill, yeah.
And he could easily bring these people back into the fold, because he said he didn't know if he was going to get another was it a 2-book deal or was it a 1-book deal? I forget. We asked him.
I think the first one
was just a 1-book. It was just a 1-book.
I really think it was one. Yeah.
They wanted to see how it went.
This book is almost so good for what it had to do. You could have given him a blank check on the spot after writing this one. Would he get a 3-book or a 2-book deal after writing this one?
He said this last one was the first time he got a 3-book deal.
So. A 3. So he got a 2-book deal. I mean, he's definitely earning that plus more. And anyone who says otherwise about this book is, I'm sorry, you're flat out wrong. Kyle did everything right that he was charged with. And you're right. Look at this Claudia and Anna scene. Mitch gets out of the Switzerland battle and immediately goes, thinking back to Consent to Kill, he has a responsibility to make sure Claudia and Anna are okay.
It reminded me, me almost... it brought me back to the Consent to Kill scene when he's they're in a tropical area, and he goes to see, goes to kill them.
Tahiti.
It's complete parallels, complete parallels here.
So you remember what we called the episode for part 2 of Consent to Kill?
I forget.
He named her Anna.
Yes.
And the first thing Mitch says when 7-year-old Anna comes up while he's talking to Claudia, he says, "You must be Anna."
Right.
And that line, to me, resonated so deeply because you recall what I thought about he named her Anna and the epilogue of Consent to Kill. And Mitch and Anna hit it off. She is they have this guard watching them, Ben, and she's all like, "Okay, bye-bye. I'm going to go talk to Ben about a castle or something." And then she's the teeth on the top of the castle. And Mitch goes, "You mean Merlons?" And she's like, what? And he goes, Merlons are the teeth, the spikes at the top of a castle, and Crenels are the spaces between them. And Anna's like, are you making that up? How do you know that? I'm going to go ask Ben. And just, it's so playful and so innocent. And here's Rap right after the Hurley op, which he feels responsible for. Having that back and forth with this 7-year-old girl whose father he practically just killed, even though he didn't kill her. Oh, can you imagine Rap leaving the kill to Hurley and not finishing off Gould? He doesn't have to lie to Anna and Claudia because Claudia asks, "Did you kill him?" And he says, "No,
no, he didn't kill him."
And even when Anna, later in life, should their fates intertwine, which we know they will, Anna, he doesn't have to tell her, "I killed your father."
Right? No, because he didn't.
He doesn't have to tell her that.
There's not like this, secret that's like that. That's like CW bullshit that we don't need that.
Right. Yo, the follow up though to that little Merlons and Crenels, the thing was Anna goes, "How do you know that?" And then Kyle writes, "The sad truth was that it was because he was an encyclopedia with only one chapter, things that could be used for war."
That's awesome.
Another nugget right there.
This could this chapter doesn't have to be there, but I think by being there, it serves a purpose,
right?
And brings them back into our minds, closes that chapter with Gould, and then acts as a springboard going forward for what Claudia and Anna and Mitch will have, the next 6 books. So,
yeah, you could have. Also, just that could have been it, right? Like Mitch took responsibility.
Yeah, we could have never seen them ever again.
Close the arc, right? And you could actually applaud Mitch for that if that's the case. And he never sees them again, but he makes sure they're financially stable. He makes sure they have protection, and he makes sure Anna has a future. Knowing who her father was, for her to have a future is pretty big, right? Her father, second or third best assassin in the world, and his little girl is going to be safe. And it's all thanks to Mitch, and he could say, "Job well done, move on." But no, their futures are intertwined.
Yep.
Well, the leaks keep coming. Joe Rickman is still from the grave fucking shit up.
Yeah, so the next section of this book, right, is these series of, like freaking Mitch is going everywhere. He's going to Greece, then he goes to London, then he goes to Rome, and then he gets to go to. Then he was already in Istanbul, like,
right?
But
and then Russia in the end.
Yeah, and then in Russia in the end, and so all these little leaks. This the London one was interesting, where he outs this Pakistani ambassador, right? It was the ambassador to Pakistan,
the Iranian ambassador, because Joe Rickman wants to start a U.S.-Iran scuffle because that's part of Alexander's administration to kind of have détente with the Iranians.
The plan. Oh, and there's another nugget later. Should I bring that up now? Like, just no, I'll save it for later. But Rick's plan is perfect.
It's perfect.
The one thing we never find out how he knew all this information.
Right.
I really wanted that. That's the one thing I left this novel wanting.
I think you're right. How did he beat Irene?
Because that's not satisfying enough just to say, "Oh, well, he's smart, so he did
He's
it."
smart. He's good. Yeah.
Who'd
he turn?
Yeah, he would have
that close.
He would have had to have turned somebody, because it doesn't seem like he's that much of a computer. He's not like a Marcus, because Marcus would have found him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
So, anyways, yeah, we get this cool scene in London. He keeps changing it up, like giving him enough time to potentially get the asset out, and so that way they look like a fool. Maybe they get caught trying to get the asset out, or not enough time to get the asset out. Like in this case, right, where he drops the video, and the Iranians come and get him real quick, and Mitch comes to London and just first of all, he hates London because it's like full of CCTV cameras, right, and he's too late. So
made me think, like, We don't see Mitch lose very often.
No.
And we know Kyle wanted to play with that in Total Power. This was kind of a loss, a small loss, where Rapp couldn't get there in time. And he even screams at Irene on the phone. He's like, we can't just keep chasing ghosts. Like, we're behind the 8 ball. They have the upper hand, whoever they is, working with Rickman now, releasing these files. And we're just chasing our tail. Like, and then he's going to go to Rome and try to strong-arm these lawyers who worked for the firm that Isabella Corso, who was the lawyer releasing the files or had the schedule for release of the files. He's got to strong-arm them, but it made me think of Fred Burton.
Mm.
When we talked to Fred Burton and how he chased guys like Ramzi Youssef and started the Rewards for Justice program, he kind of knew the FBI can't just go pinging around the globe, place to place, collecting information. It's not proactive enough, you know? It's so reactive that we can't just be reacting to whatever happens. We have to have some sort of proactive stance. And Rewards for Justice was that, because it encouraged people to provide tips and clues before events happened, so we didn't just, have to go chasing. I kind of feel like that's what Rapp is demanding of Irene and the CIA.
Well, and, they have to... The only reason they get to go to Rome is because they called in the NSA, and the NSA is pulling in all this information, most of it crap. And when I'm reading the scene between Mike and, when he gets to Rome, and between Mike Nash and Mitch, he's like, why am I here? He's like, oh, this lawyer died. Guy swerved out in his lane. He's Pakistani. And it's like, that's all you got? Like,
it's pretty thin.
Super thin. Like this, I guess they would have said this would have been the kind of lawyer that would have done it. But really, they would have sent Mitch for this?
Right.
I don't know. It seemed way too book convenient, like a MacGuffin right here, but I don't know.
Or does it show they are truly that
desperate,
lost, where that is their best lead? Like, you would send Mitch if it's all you have and it's the best you have, because there's nothing else for him to do.
Right.
It shows you're pretty desperate.
It's like that. I keep on remember one of the most powerful scenes in Total Power is when Mitch just goes home,
right,
and he's like, "Call me when you find somebody, because there's nothing I can do.
Call me when you have somebody to kill."
Yes, exactly. Call me when you have somebody to kill, because
that's true.
That's what I'm good at.
That's true.
That scene just pops up in my head every now and then. I just think of it like it's so true, because he's not a tech guy. He's not like the kind of guy that would stay there and help organize things,
It also shows his, I don't want to call it maturity, but his growth, in that he's not just going to be so impatient, rocking on his heels, being like, I'm going to get him, I'm going to get him, I'm going to get these fuckers. By Total Power, he's a little older and he's like, not my lane. Like, you have the resources to do that kind of shit, and I'll just be your guy once you have a name. And he's not just going to be this take it upon himself, go fly around the world, knock heads together, and get the job done. He realizes in the state of chaos that is Total Power, that ain't going to happen. And it's kind of a new side of Mitch for him to say, leave me out of this, and then I'll just come in and do the dirty work when you got something.
Right.
There's one other, while we wrap it up, the leaks, that is freaking awesome. This dude, Hotaki.
Oh, yeah. That was a pretty cool, again, you didn't need these chapters, but having them there was amazing,
Yeah, it was, I almost was about to be like, oh my God, who is this? Some dude in Afghanistan. But it was so awesome that it worked. And then the other thing about it is Irene's read on the situation. Because Mitch is like, we got to get him out. We got to get him out. I've actually never heard. So, by the way, Hotaki was an Afghan who fought with us, who Mitch spent lots of time on the ground with in Afghanistan fighting the Taliban. And they had a really close working professional relationship. He was one of our top contacts on the ground in Afghanistan against the Taliban. And he didn't want to come to America. He didn't want citizenship. He didn't want money. He just wanted a free Afghanistan. He just wanted to fight for his country.
He wanted to kill the people that killed his family.
Right. Yeah. He wanted revenge because they killed his family. And Mitch is like, we got to get you out. Your name's blown. Your cover's blown. He gives him the secret keyword. And I've never heard Mitch this, at least in George Goodell's version of it, Mitch this desperate, this anxious, because it's his friend and he fought with him. And he's like, get to this spot. We'll extract you. We'll resettle you in America. And Hotaki, George Goodell nails. He's like, oh, Mitch, no. Would you ever want to be resettled in a European country if your government was taken over by terrorists? Would you just want to get out and go live in, Norway? No, I'm here. I'm going to fight till the very end. And Mitch is like, no, get out. Irene's going to send somebody. And Hotaki's like, bye, Mitch. I got to do what I got to do. And he takes his Desert Eagle that Stan Hurley gave him, and he just goes guns blazing, throwing grenades at dudes, driving his truck into guys, taking a Coke bottle, I think, and stabbing somebody. Oh, he was just fighting to the death.
I'm glad you brought up that scene, because when I was listening to it, that's probably one of the best voice acted scene that George Goodell has done, because you get this like super anxiety, and it's very not rap, like, but he's so desperate. And this other guy, you can just see it in like a movie where this he's so chill because he knows what Mitch is going through, but he's like, no, that's not me, man. Like, I've been blown, but I'm fine. Like, I've come to peace that I was going to die a long time ago, doing this.
Right.
It's just how many of those fuckers I take out with me, right?
Yeah.
Goodell nails that scene. Nails it.
And you're right. It's essentially a throwaway.
You could have just said, this asset was blown.
Right.
It's like, we should get him out. Like, we can't,
Yeah.
He does 2 chapters there. 2 chapters.
Right. And they're out of the blue.
Yeah.
There's one other tie-in, though. And the other tie-in is that Irene reads the situation as, this is the first one of Rickman's leaks that's really personal to Mitch.
Right.
And Irene's like, you can't go over there. You can't go save your friend. Slow down, because you know what Rickman's doing. He's playing you. He released Otaki, a low-level nobody in Afghanistan. There's no reason for him to release that. It doesn't hurt America. All it hurts is your ego.
Mitch.
All it hurts is you and your friendship. Rickman's just trying to play you by releasing Hotaki's name. And so it shows Rickman's plan was even better than we even thought in the first place with that angle of it.
Yeah, because that list, right? That Irene writes down, right. That list is...
And she ranks them.
It's funny. She even mentions, I think she puts it in like a stage 6 or like a level 6 shredder at the end. Like, that's such an important document that needs to be getting rid of. All the names of all the assets that she thinks, that would, she might even write down all of her assets.
But she ranks them like 2 categories: how important they are, but also how likely it is that Rickman would have known about them.
And then, like, adding the 2 numbers or multiplying, it comes up with this pretty interesting system of, like, the highest numbers are ones that we should definitely get out. The lowest ones are, but then, like you said, Hataki's is at the very bottom.
Nobody.
Where Rick would know him, most likely know him, and not that important. Rick was his handler, right? Like, so.
Yeah. But it's just a toy with Mitch.
Yeah.
And it works, because it works so well that you and I both noticed George Goodell totally going to another level in how he does Mitch and his voice, and how he does Hotaki and his attitude. And it's just it's such a discrepancy between the two.
Did you listen to the interview with him after the book?
No. I got to go back to that.
On Scribed, it had an interview with him, and he talks about voice acting, and it was a pretty cool, like 10-minute interview with him.
I got to check that out.
Yeah, he's a G. He's a fucking G. Yeah, and if you can't listen to it, and they now have an hour and 30-minute clip, like preview of Enemy at the Gates,
right?
That people can listen for free. That people can listen to.
And I believe it's the prologue in chapter 1 and 2. So it's the very beginning of the book.
The first 3 chapters of the book are very long. Yeah.
You know what?
Much longer than
you about that.
Then we'll get to that, but much longer than what Kyle's typically does. So
yeah, they were long scenes. Not and again, the Flynnian thing is these kind of staccato short scenes that jump back and forth. that didn't happen in much of Enemy at the Gates.
I look at like this book, right? On
Survivor.
The Survivor on Scribed. Most of the chapters are 5-8 minutes. Every now and then you get like a 12, 13. There's only one time where there's where there's a 20-minute chapter, but the rest of the chapters are 15 and under, and most of them are like around that 10 to 12 minute mark. You know, so pretty quick. And there's a lot, decent amount of chapters. You got 62 chapters with a prologue and an epilogue. But anyways, let's jump to this. We have all these leaks. This is all leading up to, we don't have to really go into it much while this is all going on, just to say, Taj, we're finding out that he's, this great mastermind that we did not see in the last book, planning this assassination to the Iranian, or the Pakistani president, sorry. And, that's going to come to an head in a little bit. But then eventually, they get the information from the Roman lawyer. They get the files. They can't access the files.
Right.
And at the same time, Marcus and Irene realize, all right, well, if they have this information, how long will it take them to be able to find the person to access this information?
To get the encryption key.
Yeah, and essentially, we need to figure out how to go get it faster. And Marcus comes up with this great plan, Marcus to the rescue. And then we get to see Marcus in the field right after that.
Marcus in the field, yep.
I thought that was great.
Yep.
Sending essentially this phishing email to get someone to reply to him. And I guess the idiot, does it. But yeah.
And they find out there's this company in Russia, which is going to be probably, I think we have 2 major scenes left. The Russia scene, and then kind of the race to the finish line, this very Flynnian kind of, the last
very
50
fast.
pages just pick up.
Very fast.
And that's going to be the dinner, the state dinner in Pakistan.
Very fast.
Yeah, but you're right. Marcus has this phishing email that goes out, and they're able to find out the dudes who are decrypting these files and releasing them at the lawyer's on the lawyer's schedule is out in Russia. But Rapp is still in Rome, and before he leaves Rome, he does some reminiscing over a former girlfriend.
Oh, yes.
Since we hinted at it, I gotta give the quote. I got the quotes ready,
right.
And I think
give it to me.
This might have been the number one quote I highlighted that I wanted to read out on the podcast.
I texted you as soon as I read it.
Yep.
I was like, "You got that? You got that drop, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah, of course I did."
Yeah, I think you were like, "The ice pick!" Exclamation points. Yeah, so here's the Donatella name drop. Italy had always felt like a second home. He spent many happy, if infuriating, months living there with a fashion designer who had a way with ice picks. He'd never been able to sleep well lying next to her. There was no question that there was a price at which she would turn that ice pick on him. A high price, to be sure, but he still found himself habitually searching the bed for hidden weapons while they were having sex.
So it's like calling back these characters, right? And then allowing them, he doesn't have to use her in the future, but he does heavily. Like, she's in the next, 3 books, I want to say, or at least 2 of them, right?
Yep, but it's just, he even brings up the ice pick when she went to Peter Cameron, the professor's office, and she killed him with an ice pick as Mitch and Scott are coming down the hallway. Like, it's that level of, and he doesn't even say Donatella's name now that I think about it.
Doesn't say her name.
Just hints at it, to kind of lets us, these kind of more hardcore fans and readers, go nuts over that line. And if you don't really know what he's talking about,
it's just
it's
a cool,
still an interesting
it's a
story.
cool little fact. Yeah, it's a cool little fact.
Tidbit. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, and again, the research. I feel like, and then what we were just saying about Marcus, showcasing him. We haven't seen Marcus that often. Like, he gets name dropped here or there. He has a huge part in this book.
Yeah, he does. Especially now when they go to Russia to hunt down for the key. Did
Vince ever put him in the field?
So transfer of power, he was out in the van. Was outside the gates.
Right.
All right, what else has Marcus done? Like, to be honest with you, like, what other big things has he done?
I'm trying to, like, that's what I'm trying to think of. Like, besides just being, the tech guy that does stuff. Oh, he was someone with the money. Trying to track the money for something.
The banks.
Get into the banks.
When Rapp sends Wicker and somebody else into the banks in act of treason, because there's that Russian guy. Remember that Russian, like, 20-year-old who's a millionaire? I think Marcus is moving around or playing with his money.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about money and like, banks.
Right. Well, that's how he got brought in.
Exactly.
Like, messing with the banks, and then Stephen Rapp knew him because he was also, a genius.
Or he's often flying a drone for them, like gathering information, like that kind of stuff. Like he's referenced with that.
Was it this book he was doing the 3D printing?
That was this book.
That's not Enemy. Okay, because I'm reading them at the same time.
That was this book. That was pretty cool.
One other thing he does, he was, would you call it in the field? It was early on, I want to say third option. He's riding in a van with Mitch because he's got to give him some, like, he's cracking someone's email or something like that, or pinging cell phone towers. It's not quite in the field because it's not like a shootout kind of operation, but he's riding in a car with them, and he has to give them, like, live intel as they're riding around. But yeah, that was third option, so it's still many, many moons ago.
Well, this is the first time I think we see his life be potentially in danger.
Right. And how he responds.
And how
shaking in his boots.
Oh my God. He gets it.
Mitch.
He like falls over and he's like
in the snow,
trying to climb out of the snow, but it just like buries him even further. Like,
yeah. Mitch leaves him.
I was cracking up.
Mitch is like, "Stay here, don't move," and he's like, "Here in the middle of the woods. What if you don't come back?" And George Goodell nails that voice as well. He does a very good Marcus, but even better, a nervous Marcus.
And what does Mitch say to him? He's honest. I think he says internally, he's like, I don't want to be rude to him, but I got to tell him the truth. He's like, honestly, if I don't come back, you're probably going to die. And then he just skis off. Like,
and then he just leaves.
Deadpan says, if I don't come back, you're going to die. And then he just skis off.
Yep.
That was funny.
This scene was okay, pretty good from here on out. They just kind of save these villagers in the commune. They have to pose as the guards because the Pakistani dude who's captured the hacker and is like making him send him the encryption file, he looks out the window and he wants to see his guards still lined up with the soldiers. So it's like Scott plays the role of one of the guards because they're wearing the same parka. Made me think of that scene in The Patriot. Remember The Patriot?
Yeah.
When Mel Gibson rides up to meet with the general and he's like, look out in the field. He's like, my men have your men. And it's really just dummies wearing their uniforms. But I guess the thing of consequence here is before Rapp arrives, a split second before, Gudai, the Pakistani working for Taj, is able to send Taj the encryption key.
Right.
And Taj has all the files. And it turns out more files than Mitch and Irene thought was worst case scenario. Like 200 something.
Right. And what did you think of the scene? I guess like Gudai had to go one extra step to get to this. He had to find he's not as good as Marcus. He had to find the person hosting the website, go there, kill everybody there, and then come here.
That was a throwaway.
It seemed super gruesome and like not needed. I don't know. Like there are some chapters here at the end that's why this book I don't think is top 5 for me.
I agree.
Because there's a little bit at the end. It kind of goes off the rails.
Yeah,
and gets very fast. Right. So yeah, and then the scene at the commune, like you said, it's sort of just. I don't know. It's not what I wanted, but then I will say it recovers with the dinner scene. Like,
right.
Like that's what saves it almost. Like I think if you don't have that good ending, then the book might have, just been okay. Yep.
Let's say the Russia thing was the ending. I think the book would have fallen pretty flat.
Oh, yeah, like if Mitch stops him right there.
Yeah, Mitch is like, oh, he's on the computer. He's about to give him the key. Shoot him in the head. Oh, he didn't get the key out. The Rickman files are safe. Like, I would have been like, okay.
Yeah, no, that doesn't play. That doesn't play at all.
Yeah, so this little connecting story of Russia and getting the encryption key and all that is like, Hey, here's the thing, though, because Kennedy has a scene thrown in here as well that I don't think is fluff. Before we get to the restaurant scene, she has to meet with President Alexander.
Yes.
And she's nervous. And before Mitch goes on this op, she wants his opinion. And this is super interesting that she wants Mitch's opinion on if he's going to be okay with her choice as a replacement, should she be asked to resign. And she says, Mike Nash. I would suggest Mike Nash temporarily take the helm if I have to resign because of this. And she wants to make sure Mitch is okay not working with him, because Mitch says, yeah, I'll work with him. Irene goes, no, you'd be working for him.
Yeah, she's very adamant
Mitch
about
eventually, that. Yeah, very adamant. And Mitch eventually says, fine.
I'll work for him.
Yeah. But he says, I might have to knock him on his ass a couple of times, which he's already done.
A couple of times, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I thought this scene with, and then I guess like that scene was really good. But then the follow-up scene where she's in the White House, they're discussing, I think like the beginning of the scene, Ferris is there, as well as we see Lonsdale makes the comeback.
Lonsdale. Yep.
And she's on their side. And,
what book was that?
Kyle
turned her.
Before active, whenever the explosions go off, the Hawk and Dove.
Extreme Measures.
Yeah.
Because Rapp saves her in Extreme Measures in the CTC.
Exactly.
Yep. That's right.
Another callback, doing his research. And then after they leave, the president's like, all right, you see this letter? Safe. He had it out. And then he takes it and puts it back in the drawer and says, I'm not going to accept this today, but I don't want you to solve this tomorrow. I don't want you to solve. I don't want to solve this next week. I don't want you to solve this tomorrow. I want you to solve this problem now.
Yep. And listen to this line. I forgot I had a quote from this scene, which is very resonant. It's very resonant for today. It's Rapp musing on his thoughts on if Alexander decided to sack Irene. And he says, quote, putting Irene Kennedy out on the street with everything that was going on would be unimaginably stupid. The problem was that unimaginably stupid had become a job requirement in Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, obviously. I was going to ask you about this. We haven't really seen Alexander that much,
No, you're right. What'd you think about it?
We saw him a lot in the beginning. Obviously, his introduction, his wife, the cheating whore.
Active treason, yeah.
Gets, was it active treason?
That was active treason. She gets blown up.
She gets blown up.
While he's a candidate still.
Right. And then he wins. And then, we see him a little bit here and there, but I don't even think he was in The Last Man. Maybe the Alexander administration, but,
Not much.
But then Kyle uses him quite a bit in the coming novels.
The Last Man, we were kind of set up to maybe, as a reader, not be on Alexander's side, the way he's going full force on the reintegration plan, which Vince very much had strong opinions about, and how he was letting the State Department run the rebuilding in Afghanistan after the war. And right. I kind of feel like we were set up to not really think Alexander had a good grasp on foreign relations.
Yeah, I guess we never saw him, but we know he's the president. Tangentially, yeah.
The State Department, yeah. The way he empowered the State Department lady to run the show. Although Sonny Wicca is still around, the Secretary of State, because she's the one going to Pakistan for the state dinner with President Jutani.
Right. But what do you think of, Kyle likes to use the president, and he becomes pretty prevalent in the next, all the way up until Total Power, where he's a pretty big figure in that. So So yeah, it's again another callback, bringing back this character, bringing him back to our foremind, and I'm going to use him I could potentially use him again in the future.
Right. Dude, speaking of character callbacks, we've had Donatello, we've had Anna and Claudia, we've had Barbara Lonsdale. Who is running the show in Pakistan at this state dinner? Because Rap, even driving to the palace, has no idea how he's going to get in.
Right.
Now that this Gudai, or the other guy he captured, one of the Pakistanis he captured.
Gudai.
It was Gudai. Tells him on the plane, because Rap offers asylum, essentially. No, he doesn't offer asylum. He says, if you don't show up, Gudai, the Pakistanis are going to go after your family because they'll want every scrap of information about where you are and what you did and who you are, if you were good or bad. And you know what they're going to do with your family. But if I send your body back, they'll have some answers. You'll still look like a good guy. It will just look like something happened to you. And therefore, they won't investigate your family because you'll have been a patriot. You're Taj's right-hand man. And now that you're dead, they have no reason to suspect your family. But if I don't send your body back, your family's going to be suspicious. And so Gudai decides to talk to save his family, even though he knows he can't save himself. And that leads Rap to know President Jutani is the target at the state dinner, and it's going to be the chef who poisons his food. And Rap, he's got to get inside. He's got to stop this. Or, well, he doesn't care to stop it. He wants to play it. He wants to play the game. And so if he just calls security and says, there's going to be an assassination, shut it down, Taj still gets the files. So Rap's got to be smarter. His goal is not to save Jutani. His goal is to stop Taj from spreading the files. Exactly. He's got to take out Taj. Well, he gets a break when Kennedy tells him on his way to the presidential palace while he's already in Pakistan, oh, Jack Warch is running the show. He's been hired by a private security firm to work with the Secret Service over there. And fucking fat Jack Warch is back, baby.
Yeah, and he owes Mitch his life, so that's his in. And all of this is on Mitch is taking a hunch, right? He mentions he knows, or they think him and Irene are starting to figure out Taj, and they know that all this information and what he wants to do with it, they're gambling on the fact that he wouldn't have told anybody, right?
Right.
That what he wants to do with it, he's not giving it to a bunch of analysts to mine over. They're gambling that he's personally looking at it himself. Him and Gudai, obviously. Gudai's taken out, and now he'd be the last straw that they need to take out or get rid of in order to stop the leaks from coming.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we see Jack Warch coming back into our life after a very long time. And it was funny. I think in the beginning, he's pressuring Mitch, and then eventually he gives him an ID badge. So Mitch realizes, all right, he was just doing this because it's me, but the whole time he was going to let me do it. He was going to get me in. He even going
to let him in.
He even placed all of the Pakistanis that he had a relationship with, at the guard site, so they wouldn't question Mitch when he came in. To get
into the kitchen.
He had a guy on the inside, and even though it looked like he wasn't going to give up, he did.
And they couldn't let Scott in because Warch said he's got no blonde hair, blue eyes, Secret Service agents, and he wouldn't blend in. This scene just escalates so quickly from Rap taking the chef, and the chef is like a freaking dictator in the kitchen. And so Rap comes up with a cover story. This was pretty crazy. That Rap introduces himself as, who's the famous chef he impersonates?
Thomas Heller. Well, Thomas Heller's brother.
Keller. Yeah, I think Keller, right? He says,
I'm French Laundry.
Yeah, the French Laundry chef's brother. And he's like, I actually, want you to cook with me or something, or, I'm very interested in you as a chef coming to New York. And so he gets all distracted, and then he grabs him by the nuts, and he doubles over. And Rap's like, oh, it's just heat stroke, everybody. We're going to take him into the freezer. Then while he's in the freezer, he freaking threatens to hang him by a meat hook if he doesn't cooperate. It's great.
Yeah. Again, these scenes are great, but again, they're just, I don't know. This was the most unbelievable part to me of the book. That he
really?
can just
Why?
That he can just walk into this kitchen and grab this guy by the balls and then put him into a fridge, like it's heat stroke.
Well, the cover was, and they kept saying that
the guy was a dick.
All
so
the staff were too afraid; they would never question, and like the staff was just trained to be worker bees and just get yelled at. That if nobody was there yelling at them, they wouldn't know what to do. Like they would just freeze and do nothing.
Yeah. It was awesome. I mean, I'm not saying that like it was bad. Like it's Mitch's best, grabbing balls and shoving people on meat hooks,
Yeah, but Jack Warch is like, shit, we've gone too far. And when they don't find any poison on the guy or any weapons, they're like, Jack Warch is freaking out. He's like, yo, we're gonna have to backtrack here. We made a mistake, and something gives it away when the guy moves his hand in a funny way. And Mitch notices something on his wrist, and the guy starts squirming. The guy's like trying to, no. And it's like a camouflaged packet of poison and a like release device that can go into the food without anybody seeing it. It's like up his sleeve.
Was that like a subdermal, like underneath his skin? Or like something that looked like skin? Though I was very intrigued by this.
They said it blended in so well, nobody really would have seen it. But something, I forget what, made it catch Rap's eye.
I assumed it was like he put this packet of, you ever gotten a Tdap test?
No.
Like a tetanus, diphtheria?
No.
Well, the way they do it is they stick a needle. No, they stick a needle under your skin, and then they actually inject, and so like they puff up your skin. And then, like, if it doesn't go, I don't know. Caroline can tell you better than this. She reads like 10 of them a day or whatever. Anyways, but like you actually see this giant bump of fluid that is on the skin. So that's what I was imagining, right? That is in like some sort of package. He could like lice this thing and it would come out or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking almost like a
ketchup packet
that is like the color of his skin.
That's
and
probably more likely.
A little needle or something, it like pokes at the end, and like as you're working, you can just squirt it out.
Right.
But Rap makes him put it in Taj's food, and then from there, it's just a race. Rap follows the waiter with the plate to make sure he puts it at Taj's seat. President Jutani is giving a toast. Everyone's having a good time, and all of a sudden, Taj just starts coughing and losing it. And everyone's like, oh, he's just choking on food. And they're about to move on, but he coughs up blood. And then he starts in hysterics, and he falls to the ground and kicks his chair back. And then the best part is Rap rushes to the scene and goes, I'm a medic, because he wants to look him in the eyes. And he knows his esophagus is being torn apart by this acid and this poison. And Taj is trying to say, it's him.
But he can't.
And he can't get it out as Rap is just looking at him, being like, goodbye, motherfucker. Or adios, motherfucker.
This reminded me of the scene where Joffrey dies in Game of Thrones. You saw Game of Thrones, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like I just couldn't stop thinking about that scene.
And not as much. Definitely, that was at the play, right? There's that play going on. Not as much bloodshed, but it's also the chaos of the Red Wedding.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
like this scene. So everybody just starts rushing out, and Rap confirms that Taj is dead from the poison. He got to look him in the eye and scare the wits out of him. But he also sees Carl Ferris.
Right. Who's
Senator
in his cups.
Right. And he comes, and Rap's trying to help this lady on the ground, right? Some congresswoman or something. And Ferris is like, get me out of here. Oh my God. And he sees Rap and he's like, it doesn't matter. You have to get me out of here. Save me. And Rap's like, this lady's on the floor. Here's Ferris thinking, I'm going to save his ass. He's not even helping her. She's getting trampled. Grabs the fork off the table, which is what Greg was just talking about. This was the moment Greg from the Self-Defense podcast told us, improvised weapon, grabs the fork, jabs it into Ferris's leg, lets him get trampled, and carries this poor woman out of the crowd so she doesn't get hurt.
That was awesome.
Brilliant.
That was awesome. And I love the line where like, Irene's going over in post-op. She's like, apparently he got like a fork stabbed into it. You know, he's doing okay except for, you know, he's got a little injury on his leg where someone stabbed him with a fork in the chaos. I can just imagine like Mitch smiling during that, you know.
Oh, dude, you're spot on. I've got to read you this quote. And this was the epilogue. So the scene's, you know, done and dusted, and they're out at the funeral.
Yeah. I thought it was crazy how, you know, Russian, get all this action, and then boom, the next chapter, it's just like, boom, come down from a high, boom, right into this epilogue. Which I love the epilogue, but it just like, that's how like fast paced the end of this novel was going.
Yeah, it was totally an adrenaline drop. Like, you got super hyped up. Rap stabs Ferris. There's this massive crush of people. Taj is dying. It's like the craziness of the Red Wedding. And then all of a sudden it's a funeral, and Rap is chasing. Which of the Nash kids is
Charlie,
it through the cemetery?
Right?
Charlie? Yeah, I think it's a 4-year-old. One of Nash's kids he's chasing around, and they're very playful. But here's a quote of what Irene says to him as they're at Stan's funeral. Senator Ferris was trampled during the panic caused by Taj's poisoning, Kennedy said. 6 cracked ribs, a broken wrist, and a puncture wound in his thigh. He was transferred to Bethesda, and he insists that you're responsible. That you stabbed him with a steak knife. Is that true? No. You're certain? Positive. It was a fork. He told the White House that you tried to kill him. I don't try to kill people, Irene. I either do it or I don't.
Oh, that was awesome. That was so good.
Yeah. And then Irene says, the president says if you do anything like this again, he's going to kick your ass.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
And I think the last word is Rap saying, like, anytime.
You could tell Alexander laughing as he's saying that kind of stuff.
Dude, you know what that makes me think? That little banter? The opening scene of Olympus Has Fallen, I think, is the president boxing one of his Secret Service guys. Yeah, I would love to see Alexander and Mitch just sparring for fun. Because he was a quarterback. He's a big dude.
True. But before we get out of here, we got to talk about this funeral, right?
Yeah.
We get Stan Hurley's funeral, which not as big as Mitch thought it was going to be. Although, you know, he doesn't talk to 4 of his wives. No, it was two of his wives, 4 of his children, 4 of his kids. Yeah. He's got a couple lovers there.
They're crying the most, more than anybody else. These 2 South Asian women.
It was so funny.
This is really the second moment of respect for Stan, though, because I like to think that his wake, if you will, was earlier.
Oh,
at
in the freezer?
West Virginia safe house. Irene.
I love, like, Mike's like, don't go in there. Like, no,
don't go in there, Irene.
No, Irene, really, you can't see him. Like,
I need to see Stan.
I need to see him.
Okay, if you insist. And there he is. Irene walks into this freezer, and Stan's body is sitting up with a cigar in one hand and a bottle of scotch in the other.
You wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Yeah. That was the first, like, tribute or honor to Stan's death.
Yeah, it's that was hilarious. I cracked up when I read that.
Oh, so good. Now that would make a great cover, because we got to do these covers. Can you imagine a cadaver sitting up in a walk-in freezer with a bottle of scotch and a smoke?
That would have I don't know if that one would have sold there, Mike.
It would have been better than cover C.
It would have. Cover C.
Not this cover C.
Not this cover C. We're gonna get to
this
that.
This is a good cover C.
We're gonna get to that. But
hot take, everybody. Hot take.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, it's nice that we get this closure with Stan, and we get, you know, an old priest friend, and I would have thought that more of, you know, his intel buddies would have been there, but I guess maybe they, you know, they can't. I guess Kyle does say more people who know him but can't acknowledge that that they know each other.
I mean, I don't think you have to be there to honor a man like Stan. Like, Mitch doesn't like funerals, and, you know.
It's very similar to the Stansfield funeral, where,
Right.
You know, he went back to South Dakota or North Dakota, one of the Dakotas, and was just there with his family in Irene.
Where is this one for Stan? I forgot.
Is this one Iowa?
Sounds right.
Oh
no, Kentucky. I think Stan was from Bowling Green, Kentucky.
It was somewhere in the middle of the country. Yeah.
We got to verify this though, just for trivia purposes.
I wanted to bring up there's this other little throwaway
Kentucky.
line.
Bowling Green.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Throwaway line when Taj is going through all of the files and reading. A couple of them are like just the greatest hits from Vince Flynn's, bringing up assets that have played a role in the stories. And then one of the biggest ones is Ben Friedman is on the payroll of the CIA and was in charge of not this payroll, but took down the Natanz
nuclear
facility.
Yes, that was what, separation of power. I think it was separation of power. Yeah, that was a great drop because I'm just like, man, these Rickman files are spot on. And then Rapp even at one point was like, oh yeah, I was involved in a few of these assassinations. So this is real. He's got the goods.
It was just a perfect way to bring in, more history, and I think it really showed that he cared. He fully read these books and picked up lines and tidbits and facts and wove them in. It's like when, I think of it like an MCU novel, right? Or an MCU movie where you have this machine and different directors that come in but there they have like all these people that it's their jobs to understand continuity. Here you have one author taking over for another author, and it is his sole job to not only come up with a new story that is engaging to readers, but have that continuity. And I think that's what we have here. So
I think the Easter eggs make this just an A+ book, like absolutely outstanding. But at the same time, you're right, it can't crack my top 5 simply for the fact that there were some fillers, maybe some plot holes if you dig in deep. And last episode, I remember we had a few things that, in terms of the plot, the story, and the pacing, we took issue with. So I don't think it's a super complete book that's up there with The Consent to Kills, The American Assassins, The Memorial Days. But in terms of Easter eggs and the things you're doing for the fans and the callbacks and the research and the transition, A+, 100% on all those categories.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get right to it. What's your final ratings?
I'm going to go with an A-. It's solid. It is solid. It's probably top 10. Definitely not top 5, but there's no way it's bottom of the pack. Like, no way it's bottom third. So, comfortably 10 to 15 range. And when I finally write it all down, it's possibly 8th, 9th, somewhere in there. How about you?
Yeah, I'm almost identical with you. It's an A-. It gets bonus points for what it lacks in some of like you said, the plot holes. I didn't buy Rickman's, the different we got in Rickman from Last Man and to now, like this whole psychoticness, but
his motivations.
But maybe I believe that. And then like we said, the some of the Russia scenes were just building up. Like the build up was so good, and then it just didn't capitalize enough to not like if you were able to have all these Easter eggs and have that, this would have been like boom,
right,
top 3.
Right.
So, but again, very good novel.
Yeah. And we've said it from the beginning in this episode and last. Very few people, if nobody else on earth, could have done the transition better. Like nobody. We are in good hands with Kyle, and this book, for doing that and pulling that off, deserves so much. Even if we're not putting it in the top 5, it deserves so much recognition for what it accomplishes and how genius it is.
Who's your winner of the book?
Kyle. It's Kyle.
Kyle.
Big winner. That's it.
Mine's either Stan for getting the kill on Gould with biting him in the fucking neck.
Yeah.
Or I really enjoyed Marcus in the field, even though he's not that good in the field. Like he's the reason that they were able to get there, even when they did get there. So it's Stan. I mean, it's Kyle, really.
Stan, Kyle and Stan.
It's Stan. This is Stan's last novel. It's Stan's last novel.
It's Stan and Kyle. There they are. If I had to add one, I'd add Jack Warch. Saves the day. But Stan and Kyle, big time. We talked about losers as we went. Some nitpicky things that we found. So let's do the covers. Give it to me, Chris. What's your gold, your silver, and your bronze?
All right, this is a hot take.
Okay.
I really like cover C.
Okay.
So if you're under a rock or you're joining us for the first time, which I don't know why you would pick the second episode of the Survivor.
Maybe you really like Kyle Mills. Forget this Vince Flynn guy. We're jumping to the Kyle Mills podcast.
But if you've been with us since the very beginning, you know what cover C is. And this line normally has power lines. We do not have power lines. Instead, we have what looks to be a mosque. Is it the Hagia Sophia? It's not the Hagia Sophia. It's got to be like...
It looks like Istanbul.
Yeah, it's got to be
Istanbul.
Istanbul.
Don't know for sure, though.
Because that's the same sort of picture we have in D, which is my silver medal. So I'm going to go bronze with cover C. Okay. Silver is cover D, which is this like half black, half, blue cloudiness with Istanbul. And then my number one's got to be A with
the OG.
Which is the OG, which is really cool. I don't even know what that is.
I want to know what that building is. That tower.
It looks like maybe like somewhere in Rome, somewhere like Italian architecture.
It looks like it, but spent a lot of time in Rome, and that building is not familiar.
I don't know. I like the sunrise. I guess it could be somewhere in DC. But the big takeaway is purple. Is the purple and the orange. Yeah, the purple and the orange work really well.
Yeah.
But cover C, I just love cover C. It's got, because I think you could see Mitch, being over there, contemplating what he's going to do at the very end of the novel. And it's just wild to me that finally, someone read the novel or knew a little bit about the plot to put it on the actual fucking cover instead of a power line.
All right, let's not go too far now, because if this were Consent to Kill, I would give plenty of credit to cover C, but Istanbul or the Middle East, not that much happens with rap on the ground. I mean, I don't think this is Pakistan where rap actually is on the ground. Did enough of this book take place in a city that would look like that?
I mean, the very beginning. So I give it credit. They read the first chapter.
Well, that's the cover C test. Did you at least read the first chapter before picking cover C?
To figure out all we're looking for is a location. I still will not give it. The most egregious thing is the one in the snow with the train.
Oh my God.
I forget which novel that was.
Goodness. A train?
In the snow.
Train?
And I think the novel takes place in the summer.
In the Middle East.
That would have been better for this one.
Put a snowy train.
That would have been better for this one when they go in the snow, like in Russia.
I can't. All right. We got to move on from cover C. Right. When cover C takes up more than 2 minutes of airtime, I think this podcast is going off the rails.
Probably.
All right. Here's a couple other hot takes going on here. There's no standing man.
No.
Because cover B, which I think is the standing man line, is a shadow. So it's like standing shadow man. And we don't actually see the Nicolas Cage, National Treasure style looking guy on the cover in action. Nicolas Cage oh.
Very true.
I don't think we have a standing man here. So, yeah, favorite, definitely the original. That cover A is just awesome, and I'm happy to say that's my signed copy, the Kyle Mills signed copy that I own, the original orange purple sunrise. But for my second place, I also have a hot take. Give me some love for cover G. Look at that bad boy. Cover G is the facade of some building, which is very blocky. It's almost like a tapestry with all these different components and different architectural features. The Crenels and the Merlons that Rap talked about with Anna. I mean, probably a very loose connection because those are not real Crenels and Merlons, but it's just a cool building, and I think it shows the complexity of Rickman's plan. I almost see that as like a matrix of the different components of Rickman's plan, some bulging out, some very subtle, and they all kind of work together in this tapestry of this building and the components of it.
Well, I also
maybe I'm too philosophical there.
I like this cover because once you've read it and you look back, is this like a facade of a wall in London? Is this a facade of the wall in Istanbul? Is this a facade of a wall in Rome? You know, like
could be any.
He is globetrotting in this novel,
right?
So it's great. I do want to point out, if you go up to cover J, you get a better view of that building from cover A. I really want to find out what this building is. It's cool.
Well, Twitterverse and Facebook group friends, anybody know the tower on cover A and J? Hit us up. You'll get a sticker. Ooh, how about that? We haven't given out a sticker in a while. Mitch Rap Pod sticker to anybody who identifies the building for us. I'm going to be up all night looking for that. But yeah, I got to give my last one. My third place was your second place, I think, cover D. I also like the sea green, foam green, bluish background, and that awning that we're underneath looking out at the cityscape. I think pretty cool cover D. So there it is.
As a whole, not bad covers. Even though some of the international ones are pretty good. So yeah. A lot of them focus on Istanbul, which again is the first chapter. So now that I'm thinking about it, I should give less credit to it. That's why I only gave it bronze. I didn't give it silver. So
that cover C would be great for Consent to Kill. I'll leave it at that. Or even American Assassin.
Yes. Anyways, this was a great book. We thank you, Kyle, for giving us this and future books to come. Can't wait to talk to you soon about your latest book.
Yes. Let's do it.
And yeah, so next time we'll be coming to you. We're going to be giving you something a little special. A character study on the one, the only, the Stan Hurley.
Stan fucking Hurley.
So really looking forward to talking to you about, a whole hour on Stan with you, Mike. That'll be fun.
There's probably way more than an hour of content to talk about. We'll have to try to condense it here.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. As always, we need to thank our patrons, our special operator, Sherry F., our special agents, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us at mitchrappod.com or using our Twitter or Instagram handle at mitchrappod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch. Just a disclaimer, this podcast is not affiliated with Vince Flynn, Kyle Mills, or Simon & Schuster, but thank you to them for bringing us the wonderful world of rap. And the music soundtrack is Guerrilla Tactics by Raphael Crooks.